All right, guys. How you doing? Today we're going to talk about a little bit about relative frequency tables. I know you guys talked about frequency table Tuesday, but I'm going to do a little bit extension of that frequency table and go further into relative frequency tables, and then we're going to go right into histograms, creating histograms and interpreting histograms. All right. So the first part, the objective. The objective is to utilize a frequency table to create a histogram. Answer questions based on the histogram, describe the shape of the histogram, and explain how changing intervals may affect the shape. All right. So far we have learned how to use the following to display data: dot plots, frequency tables, and we're now going to do relative frequency table. Today we're going to learn how to create a histogram. Histogram shows the same information as bar, shows the same information in form of bars, and it gives a better visual representation of the information. You may want to use a histogram to display continuous data such as time, measurements, and temperature. However, a problem with histograms is that it's difficult to compare two sets of data, and exact data can't be read. All right, so those are some setbacks, some things that you got to consider when you're looking at histograms. It's difficult to compare two sets of data, and exact data can't be read. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Here we go. Now, I'm about to create a relative frequency table based off the temperatures. Okay, it says on the calendar below, Mindy recorded the daily temperature, high temperatures in degrees Fahrenheit for the first 15 days in May. So it looks like on May 1st, it was 77 degrees, 80 degrees, 65 degrees. And it looks like May 15th, it was 87 degrees. So 77, 80, 65, 61, 65, 71, 82, and so on. Okay, so we're now going to create first our frequency table, which I've kind of created for you. How many temperatures do we see between 20? Remember, we set up our intervals. I'm going to pick intervals of 5. My intervals will be intervals of 5. That means that I'm going to have, first of all, how many data points do I have? I have 15 data points, and I'm going to use intervals of 5, okay? So my numbers, first of all, let's do this. Let's look at the minimum. What is my minimum? My minimum number, or the lowest number I have, is what? It is 61, okay? My maximum number, the max here, I see a 86. Anything higher than 86? 87. Okay, cool. 87, okay? Now, looking at that, 87 minus 61 is what? That will give me 26, okay? So that's 26. So instead of doing 26, 26 is hard to break up. I would rather do, let's go here. For this particular exercise, I want my range to be 61 through 90. Okay, that will be 30 numbers. And I could divide 30 evenly by what? Remember, I told you guys how to determine your intervals. You could take your range divided by the width of your histogram, the width of your of the intervals. What is the width of your intervals you want them to be? That will tell you how many intervals you're going to have. So the range, my range is 91 to 61. Let's say that's a range of 30. And 30 divided by the width of what I want my bands to be is 5. I want to be 5 each. That means I'm going to have 6 intervals of 5, 6 of them. So I'm going to have 61 through 65, 66 through 70, 71 through 75. And this is all down here, 75 through 76 through 80, 80, 81 through 85, 86 through 90, okay? So if you take this, and I showed you guys how to do this yesterday. This is 30. You divide it by 5. The range is 30. I know 91 minus 61, 90 minus 61 is not exactly 30, okay? But if you made this 60, Then 90 minus 60 will be 30. 30 divided by 5 is 6. That means you're going to have 6 intervals here, okay? So we should see 6 intervals on the table. So let's go down to the bottom and see what we got here. Okay, I do. 61 through 65, 66 through 70, 71 through 75, 76 through 80, 81 through 85, and 86 through 90. All of these have a width of 5, and there's 6 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of them right here. Okay, now, so I counted 3 times that there were numbers between 61 and 65 up here. So I'm going to use, let me erase this now. Okay, I counted 3 times that I had numbers between 61 and 65. I'm not going to do all of these because I want you guys to just get a basic, get the gist of it. There are my 3 numbers between 61 and 65. Okay, now I counted 2 numbers between 66 and 67, 66 and 60 and 70. I mean 66 and 70. There's a 70. There's a 70. There's no other numbers. All right. So what do I have between 71, 75? 71 right there. Here's one right here. And right there. Two numbers between 71, 75. And you can see the rest. There are 3 numbers between 76 and 80. There's one number between 81 and 85. And then there is 4 numbers between 86 and 90. Okay. So I put all of those here. Now, remember, she looked at 15 days. She looked at 15 days in May. If you add all of these up, you will get a total of 15. 3 plus 2 plus 2 plus 3 plus 1 plus 4, that gives you 15. So we looked at 15 days, and so now I'm going to calculate the relative frequency. The relative frequency is divided by the number of frequencies that I saw divided by my total frequencies. So I saw 3 frequencies here. Right here, I saw 3 frequencies. I'm dividing by the total frequencies, which were 15 days that I counted. 3 divided by 15, if you put that in the calculator, you're going to get 0.20. 3 divided by 15. You put 2 divided by 15, you get 0.13. Now, if you want to make that a percentage, which is something that you learn how to make a decimal percentage, you multiply it by 100. Multiplying it by 100 moves the decimal place 2 places to the right. So now this becomes a relative frequency percentage is 20% here, okay? All I'm doing is moving my decimal 2 places to the right. This is how you calculate relative frequency and relative frequency percentage. We're going to do more of this on Friday, okay? So here we go. Bam, bam. This will be 13%. Move the decimal places 2 places to the right. This will be 13% as well. This will be 20%. And remember, how did I find that 20%? 3 divided by 15 in my calculator gives me 0.20. 1 divided by 15 gives me 0.066666. I made it 0.07, okay? This will be 7% here, and this will be 27%. If you add all of these percentages up, you should get 100%, okay? Because the total is 100% of the 15 days that you look at. If you add up all of these decimals, you should get 1.0 or 1.00, okay? All right, so the relative frequencies are here, and here are the relative frequency percentages. We'll talk about that more on Friday and Monday, okay? Now, let's keep going. Now we have to create our histogram. What is a histogram? Let's look at this. We talked about a histogram, but let's look at some rules of histograms. Histograms has an appropriate title, okay? Histogram has an axis. Axes are labeled the intervals or your frequencies. The intervals are on the x-axis. My intervals are going to be intervals of 5. That's going to go on the x-axis. Now, the frequencies goes on the y-axis, okay? If your frequencies are number of people you counted. My frequencies here will be the how many days that you count. Number of days will be my frequency here. Because on the right, on the left side or the y-axis of my table, I'm counting the number of days. How many days did you see with this temperature between 61 and 65? How many days did you count had a temperature between 66 and 70? Okay, so here we go. This is just the table that we created above. All I did was slice out, copy out this part right here. Okay, this whole part, I'm sorry, this thing is hard for me to use. This part right here, I copied that out. and I put it right here. And now I'm going to, now remember, intervals go on your x-axis, your frequencies, whatever they represent, go on the y-axis, okay? Now, here we go. Looking at this, here are my numbers. Now I'm going to go here. Now, so I have 3 days that I counted have a temperature between, there were 3 days that I saw at a temperature between 61 and 65. So I'm going to use here a red for 61 and 65. I'm going to go down here, and my x-axis is already labeled temperatures. Here is my range, 61 to 65. Here's my interval. Here's another interval, 66 to 70, another interval, 71 to 75, 76 through 80, 81 through 85, and 86 through 90. Those are my intervals, okay? Now, on my y-axis, right here, here's the y-axis. This was the x-axis. This is your y-axis. This is frequency, or it is the number of days. I start off at 0 days all the way up to 6 days. Now, I could have went higher, but there's no need because I didn't count more than 4 or 5 days for one temperature range, okay? And now, so I saw that there were 3 days that had a range that I saw between 61 to 65. So I'm putting my bar there. Now, let's go back up. 3 days right here between 61 and 65. Now, my other range is 66 through 70, okay? So that range is from 66 all up to 70. That's 5. Remember, your bars have to be the same width. All your bars need to be the same width. That was something that we went over right here. Histograms have to have an appropriate title. The axes are labeled with intervals of X and Y. X-axis, the intervals on the X-axis and the frequencies on the Y-axis. Intervals used are equal, okay? Bars are even. So by equal, they mean this. Okay, what is the width of this interval? It's 5. So the next one should be 5. The next one should be 5. Bars are even, and the bars have to have the same width. The height may be different, but the bars have to have the same width, okay? The height can be different. Here we go. Now, next one. I saw 2 days between 66 and 70. I'm looking right here. 2 days between 66 and 70. I'm going to use green. Well, you know what? Let's try this light blue. Okay. So right here, 66 and 70. And I saw there were 2 days at a temperature that was between the numbers of 66 and 70. Now, and then for 71 to 75, there were also 2 days. And let's do this in dark blue. Okay. So bam and bam. Okay, now let's scroll down. Here we go. I'm going to 66 through 70. I'm going to use my light blue here, 66 through 70, and I'm going to the number 2, going straight across and going here. So let me explain this to you again. This would have to be 61. This over here would be 65. This right here would be 66. This right here would be 70. Next, 71 over here would be 75, okay? Also, now, so remember, the next one was also 2, but I'm going to use a darker color here. So for this one, it was also 2. And bam. So it will be 2 days as well, okay? So I have 2 days between 71 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's go back up, look at what we got here. The next range, I'm going to use the color purple. And it looks like it's going to be 76 through 80, okay? 76 through 80, and there are 3 days. So it looks like I'm going to have 3 days of 76 through 80, 1 day that had 81 through 85 degrees Fahrenheit, and 4 days. So 3, 1, and 4, okay? 86 through 90, okay? Let's go back down here. 3, 1, and 4. Remember that, 3, 1, and 4. Here we go. Going to my purple here. I'm going to go to 3, go across, and come down. This is 76 here. This will be 80 over here, okay? Let's do the next one. Let's use some yellow here. I think it was 3, 1, and 4, right? We had 1 day that was 81 through 85, okay? And then we had 3, 1, and 4. That's correct. Let's check again. Yep, 3, 1, and 4. And we need a new color here. And I may be out of colors. I don't know. I'm going to try to use like a different type of, well, you know what? Let's use this lime green here. Okay, 3, 1, and 4. Going up to 4, and I'm looking over here. This is 4. Put a line there. Come down. Notice all my bars are always touching. Okay, bars have to touch in a histogram. It is best that they do touch. So this one is 61 here to 65 there. 66 through 70, and notice all of them have a width of 5, intervals of 5, okay? I have 6 intervals, and their width is 5, okay? Their width is 5. So this is my histogram, okay? This will be my histogram. Now, next we're going to look at how to interpret histograms, okay? I'm going to continue with this. So here's my histogram, and this is another thing you can look at real fast. Let me show you something real fast. If frequency here also represents the number of days, let's count how many days I have. To see, they should remember, we looked at 15 days. So I should have, this is the number of days here. This is the temperature here. So let's look. They should add up to 15. 3, this is 2. 2, this is 2 again, right? This is 3. We're already 3 plus 2 plus 2 plus 3 is 10. This is 1, right? And this is 4. All of those add up to the 15 days. So they ask me how many days does the histogram represent? You could say 15 days. This will also be number of days, the frequency right here. I could put number of days, okay? And it represents 15 days, okay? All right, now, so that's just a good thing to know about histograms. And now we're gonna do some interpretation of histograms. Here we go. This is the interpretation. The graph below shows the distribution of the scores of 30 students on a mathematics test. Now, notice over here, this is the frequency or the number of students, okay? Number of students. They already told us how many students, 30 students right here. So all of these bars should add up to 30, okay? This is the number of students. Right here, this is between 2 and 4. So this has to be how many students? 3. This is between 4 and 6. So what is that? That's 5. This is nothing here because that's 0. This right here is 12. This right here goes back to 8. And right here, this one goes back to 2. You add all those together, you should get your 30 students. Now, so let's go ahead and see how we can interpret this. How many of the students scored 80 and below on the math test? It didn't just say 80, it said 80 and below. So you're looking from here all the way back, 80 and below, okay? So this right here is 12, okay? Remember, number of students is here. This is 0, okay? This right here is between 6 and 5, 6 and 4, this is 5. And this is between 2 and 4, this is 3. So 12 plus 0 plus 5 plus 3. What did you get? What did you get? Think about it, think about it, think about it. You should have got 20. Okay, so there were 20 students that scored 80 or below on the test. Okay, let's keep going. How many students took the test? Oh, well, you can add up the height of all the bars. I forgot to add up these. This is 8 right here, right? I forgot. And this is 2. Okay, now they already told you 30 students took the test. We already know that. Or you can add up the height of the bars. Remember, number of students is right here. Now, about what percent of students scored between 51 and 60? Well, let's look at 51 and 60. 51 and 60 is right here. This whole bar represents 51 to 60, and that's 5. How many students? If they ask you about the scores, that's here. If they ask you about the students, that's here, okay? So that's how you know what you're looking at. If I want to know about my scores, I'm looking here. If I want to know about my students, I'm looking here on the y-axis. Scores are x-axis. Number of students is y-axis. Let's keep going. Almost done. Which of these statements is false? Fewer than 13 students scored above 80. Above 80. That's not including 80. Above 80. Above. Okay? So that means that you're looking at this bar and that bar. That is fewer than 13. 8 plus 2, yes. Fewer, above 80. That means not this bar. You got to do these 2 bars. Above 80. This is 71 through 80 here. So above 80, will be these two bars right here. That is 10. So yes, this is true. We're trying to find out which one is false, okay? Let's keep going. Which one of these is false? Hold on, let me go ahead and erase this, okay? So we found out that that one was true. Let me go ahead and scroll up here. That one was true. Now, over half of the students score between 71 and 80. Well, half will be, half of 30 is what? 15. It says over half. So that's not including 15. That means 16 or higher. Over half of them score between 71 and 90. Let's look at that. 71, between 71 and 90. That's interesting. 71 and 90. Let me go ahead and erase some things here. I'm going to get this out the way. I want you to look at that and tell me which bars represent 71 through 90. 71 through 90. Let's look at that. 71 through 90 is over half of the student score between 71 and 90. Well, let's go to our blue here. Let's go here between 71 and 90. And remember, over half. Half of 30 is 15. There are 30 students. Over half means more than 15. Okay? So let's look. I count 71 to 90 is this bar right here and this bar right there. And this, how many students scored between 71 to 90? These two bars. That will be 12 plus 8. 12 plus 8 is 20. It's 20 over half. Yeah, it is. That's true. 20 students scored. So yes, this is true. True again. More students scored between 71 and 80 than between 81 and 90. Well, let's look at it. More students scored between 71 and 80 than between 81 and 90. So they're saying more students scored between 71 and 80. Yeah, look. 12 students scored 71 to 80. 8 students scored 81 to 90. There were more for 71 to 80. So this is true also. True. Less than half of the students scored below. Less than half of the students scored lower than 81. Less than half. Less than half. So half is what? Half of 30 is what? 15. So when they say less of half, you should be putting in your mind less than half, less than 15, less than 15. Okay. Okay. Let's see if we got less than 15, lower than 81. Less than half of the students scored lower than 81. So I'm going to 81 and I'm going lower than that. So the 81 bar is right here, 81 through 90, and I'm adding up all of these less than. Lower than 81. Lower than 81 is this bar, no bars here, this bar plus this bar. Let's see. 12. So it'd be this bar, this bar, this bar. The reason I'm not adding that bar because there's nothing there. There's 0 students. 12 plus 5 plus 8, that is 20. So let's see. We got 20 students that scored lower than 81. It says less than half of the students scored lower than 81. No, that's not true. Actually, 20 students scored lower than 81. 20 students. So this one is your false right here. So you will put D. D is false. D is the false one, okay? Okay, now, if there were 90 students taking this exam instead of 30, how many students would you expect to earn a test score between 81 and 90? Let's think about that. This histogram represents 30 students, okay? So how can I extrapolate 30 to 90? Well, what can I do to 30 to get 90? I want somebody to answer that for me. And now, if you said I can multiply it by 3, then you are correct. You multiply it by 3. So if you want to know what this histogram will look for 90 students and you want to extrapolate that to 90 students, multiply every number you have. If I got 20 students at this range, then multiply by 3. If I had 90, that means I would have 60, okay? So they want to say, how many students would you expect to earn a test score between 81 and 90? Well, whatever it is at 81 and 90 for 30 students, multiply it by 3 to find out what it would be for 90 students. So let's go up to 81 and 90. 8190 has 8 students. So on this test of 30 students, there were 8 that scored 81 to 90. So if I'm looking at 90 students, that means 8 times 3 will score 81 to 90. So let's do this. I'll show you how I'm going to do this. With 30 students, I got 8 students that scored 81 and 90. So what would that be for 90? Well, 30 times 3 gives me 90. So 8 times 3 gives me what? 24. Okay. So you will have, I'm going to extrapolate that and guess that I will have 24 students would score 24 students. Okay. This is how you do that. So your assignment today and your assignment for Wednesday will be creating histograms. Your assignment for Thursday will be interpreting. Okay. I will give you guys some shout outs. Make sure these are the 2 things I want you to remember. 1, you're going into clever.com and you are logging in. If you do not see your name at the top right of clever.com, of IXL, then you have not logged in yet. Check the right hand corner. Your name should be in there. All right. I'll put an example in the Google Classroom. 2, make sure that you're trying to get a score of 80 or higher. You want a smart score of 80. If you get a smart score of 80, that counts as 100% in my grade book. Okay. Anything higher than an 80, I will give you extra credit. So you're going to get a 10 if you get an 80% or higher. So you're trying to get a smart score of 80 on IXL. Once you get to 80, if you want to stop there, you can. You can go higher and go up to 100 if you want. That will all be extra credit. But you have to get a smart score of 80 or higher, okay? Okay, now, so remember those things. I'll give you guys shout outs to on my next recording. Missing you guys. We're making the best of this, guys. All of us are trying to get used to this. Bear with us. There are going to be better times ahead, all right? All right, God bless you. Love you guys. Bye. Wow. That is 27